But we begin tonight with Donald Trump's shock and awe strategy, which is starting to feel a lot like more shock and a little less awe. He's been making a blizzard of moves in these first 18 days of his second administration, meant to inspire fear and outrage, creating problems and then pretending to solve them so that he can look like a savior, keeping his promises to his base. And while it's all really bad and destructive, I think it's important to sort out the actual fires from the smoke and mirrors, because let's face it, we can't react to everything effectively all at the same time. But that's what autocrats and coup leaders want, right? While we're running from fire to fire, Trump and Elon's little DOGE gang are dismantling our federal government from within. So just for a moment, let's just take a step back and look at what he's been saying versus what he's been doing. Trump announced 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, which sent the markets into a tizzy. All for him to pull a reverse at the last minute, claiming he got major concessions, when in reality, Mexico and Canada basically reiterated the same border security measures they had already agreed to under Joe Biden. Trump backed down and got nothing. The administration is also blitzing the airwaves and social media with terrifying pictures of what they claim is the largest deportation operation in American history. But as Politico reports, the number of daily ICE arrests trumpeted each day on Twitter are still about where they were at times under President Barack Obama. Many of those detained have no violent criminal history, and the White House said Wednesday that more than 400 migrants have been released for lack of detention capacity, among other reasons. So catch and release, yeah? Ugly, expensive, and yes, performative arrests that absolutely make communities feel terrified, but for almost no new result. Then there's the executive order banning transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. Transgender people make up less than 1% of our population, and there are fewer than 10 collegiate athletes who identify as transgender in the whole country. That was not me stuttering. I said 10. The federal government bullying 10 Americans is bizarre and cruel, but as I explained yesterday, the federal government does not mandate who can play in school sports. If local school boards decide to mimic that ugly EO, it is awful, yes, but local voters will be able to hold them accountable. As for America taking over Gaza to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East, the administration has already walked that one back, especially his shambolic talk about sending in U.S. troops. He posted on his social media today that no troops will be needed since Israel will just hand over Gaza to the U.S. once the war is over. Okay, so Israel will somehow physically expel 2 million Palestinians, which, by the way, is definitional ethnic cleansing, and then hand over Gaza to us to colonize with no military protection. Yeah, that should go over great. Speaking of countries that Trump is threatening to go to war with, after the State Department claimed that U.S. government vessels can now transit the Panama Canal for free, which would save the government millions of dollars a year, the president of Panama came out and said, nope, no, you can't. And this morning, Trump called for CBS to lose its FCC license and for its news show 60 Minutes to be immediately terminated after the network caved and released the full unedited interview with former Vice President Kamala Harris from October, which shows, surprise, surprise, nothing abnormal. This is the part where I tell you that CBS as a network does not have an FCC license. Local stations do. So why all of the smoke? Forgetting what they've said, we know that what the Trump-Musk gang have actually done is that Elon's DOGE gang have gained access to files at the Treasury Department, the Office of Personnel Management, Small Business Administration, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Department of Education, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and Veterans Affairs. They've requested access to the Department of Labor, which houses confidential information, including for whistleblowers, economic data, and other personal information. But after a group of unions sued, they've been blocked by a judge until tomorrow. Now, naturally, this has triggered panic within the federal workforce and across the country because unvetted and unqualified Musk sycophants are rummaging through highly sensitive data. Newly minted Treasury Secretary and multimillionaire Scott Bessent dismissed all of this as nothing but squawking.
When you hear this squawking, then some status quo interest is not happy. What I will tell you that at the Treasury, our payment system is not being touched in terms of payments being stopped. That is happening upstream at the department level.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Musk has claimed the exact opposite on X Twitter when he said his team was canceling payments to Lutheran organizations. And Wired reports that a 25-year-old engineer, Marco Ellis, was among the DOGE staffers given access to the code at the Treasury Department that controls Social Security payments, tax returns, and more. According to Wired, those privileges could give someone the power to log into servers through secure shell access, navigate the entire file system, change user permissions, and delete or modify critical files. Early this morning, that federal judge got the Treasury Department to limit DOGE's access to your sensitive data to just 2 DOGE people who supposedly would have only read-only access. According to the language agreed to by the 2 sides, one of the 2 is Musk ally Tom Krause, the chief executive officer at Cloud Software Group. The other is Marco Ellis. Treasury Department officials were asked by the judge if those Musk allies had distributed the fiscal data to anybody else. And they said, as far as we are aware, no, they have not outside the Treasury Department. As far as we are aware, well, that's not exactly comforting. But wait, there's more. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight that Marco Ellis has resigned from his position at DOGE because the Journal found that he had links to deleted ex-Twitter media accounts where he attacked the notion of Indian nationals in the tech world and declared that he was racist before it was cool. Ellis did not respond to the Journal's request for comment. Joining me now is MSNBC political analyst and former Congressman David Jolly and Judd Legum, author of Popular Information. Judd, I want to start with you because this sort of, to our knowledge, these young DOGE kids have not shared anything. That doesn't make me feel good about what's been going on at Treasury. What does your reporting say about what they've actually done with their access to those files while we've been out here chasing all of the rabbits that Donald Trump has been emptying into the garden?
Well, I think, unfortunately, we don't know a lot about what has been done, because I know through some of the reporting I've been doing at the Office of Personnel Management, which keeps all the files for all millions of federal workers, employment files, job applications, Social Security numbers, et cetera, they've been given administrative access to these files. At the same time, the career staff have been locked out of these databases. So you have both really expansive access on the one hand, but then the folks that might be able to say and tell what is going on are not able to do so. And so there's all sorts of speculation, but I think we've already seen the DOGE group start to use this data, and I'm sure we'll continue to use this data for a lot of different purposes, including the decimation of the federal workforce. First we have this supposedly voluntary resignation, but I think after that, there's at least indications that it may be used to implement reductions in force.
Right. I mean, and this is the problem, David, is that, I liken it to throwing a smoke bomb in the lobby of the bank, and then everyone's running from the smoke while the robbers are in the vault cleaning out the bank, right? Cleaning out the cash. The data is so valuable, right? The data imagine that having the data of 320 million Americans and your primary business is AI. That data is extremely valuable and will give you a competitive advantage unlike anything else, even if they're not doing something even crazier, like, making hit lists, or making, not hit lists, I should say, lists of people that they want to get rid of in the federal government based on some ideological or ethnic or some other factor. All those sorts of listings could also be dangerous to federal workers and make their lives miserable. But just the idea that people are just accessing it all. I want to give you another one of the people that Wired, in their great reporting, has uncovered, has had at least some access to our data inside Treasury. It's a guy named Evan Korstein. He's 19 years old. He's a high school graduate. He works at DOGE. He has access to U.S. government systems. His professional and online history call into question whether he would even pass a background check typically required to obtain security clearances. Security experts tell Wired he runs something called Tesla.sexy, which operates a Russian website. He worked at a startup that hired convicted hackers. Someone using his Telegram handle solicited a cyber attack. And on his LinkedIn, and I apologize to the Saints out there, and we know a lot of the Saints listen to the show, he called himself Big, B-A-L-L-S. I won't say the whole word, so I won't be vulgar. That's what he calls himself. So Big, B-A-L-L-S, has all of our Social Security data and maybe downloaded it, maybe didn't share it, maybe did. Your thoughts?
Joy, I think it's pretty clear that the U.S. government has been raided by the world's richest man under the permission of a billionaire felon president who thinks that governing is a reality show. And that creates a constitutional crisis. And I think there are so many fires to put out. You're exactly right in discussing this, that sometimes you have to choose which one is the real kind of existential question. And so it is not necessarily, though wrong on policy, the attack on USAID or the attack on the Civil Service Corps. Those are very important and worth fighting for. But I think the fundamental issue here is the lawlessness of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and their DOGEs, and whether or not there was a security breach. We know there are violations of law. There are violations of the Impoundment Act, violation of civil service protections, violation of the Constitution. It is the question of lawlessness that is creating the constitutional crisis, not necessarily the policy behind it. The policy has to be fought as well. But part of the existential question, the constitutional crisis, is because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but it also is equally because of the collapse of the Republican Congress. If Democrats controlled the Congress right now, Elon Musk would be at a congressional hearing tomorrow. The DOGEs would be sitting at hearing tables. Everyone would be getting a fair hearing about what the hell is going on right now in the government. But we see the malfeasance by Trump and Musk, but it's kind of a passive malfeasance by the Congress that has to be recognized. The Republican Congress has collapsed. It has collapsed. It no longer honors its constitutional responsibility. And in that vacuum, we get the violations of law and Constitution that we're seeing.